Good morning in some spaces. Good afternoon with you. Of course, today's episode of Cheap Seats. I'm Frank Holder. We've got two comics with you, comedian Fig and comedian Talent. We get ready to do what we normally do every day at 1 o'clock. We get ready to talk comedy. We get ready to talk sports. Except for this show, it's a blend of both. And the funny thing is that today's show, even though we talk sports, it's going to be a little bit different than what we normally would talk about. Isn't that right, fellas? Because as of yesterday around this time, here's the funny thing about it. Yesterday around this time, we were talking normal edition of sports. But within 24 hours, tennis, soccer, baseball, football, and basketball all stopped their activities because of what happened to Jacob Blake over the weekend in Wisconsin. Now, let's give kudos before we even start the show. Let's give major kudos to the Milwaukee Bucks because they did not plan on doing what they did. They ended up talking amongst themselves, and 15 minutes before the game was about to tip off with the Orlando Magic, they walked out, which has proceeded clear across all the major platforms, all the sports. One thing that's, one sport canceled, another sport canceled, another sport canceled. Yeah. Now, Talent, how surprised were you to see the repercussions of what the Milwaukee Bucks did when like I know, that these guys playing sports, maybe they might not be able to do too much, but how surprised were you to see the repercussions in that?
Well, I wasn't that surprised. I had got wind of a meeting with two other teams prior to them. And I think what happened was Milwaukee got to the point where they said, this is closer to home to us than anybody in the league. And it wouldn't behoove us to let another team boycott the game. And this is in our backyard. Mm-hmm. This is literally, I don't know if people know, but this happened 40 minutes outside of downtown Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I wasn't that surprised because I already expected it from two other teams that were going to play. And they were like, you know what? We need to boycott because we're walking around. We got Black Lives Matter on the floor. We got the stuff on our jersey. We're talking in our post interview post shows, and it's still happening.
Right.
So when they jumped on the wagon and kind of jumped ahead of it and steamrolled it, I was more surprised that everybody else went along with it.
Right. Hey, Fig, when the night before, I think it was Monday night, previous night, LeBron had made a couple of statements to the press that was basically hit home and everything else. Were you surprised to see that he wasn't the one to lead the charge, and that Milwaukee basically was the team that lead the charge into everything that happened?
No, well, LeBron, the one thing that we have to attribute to LeBron is that he's always been conscientious. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He's been socially responsible, philanthropic. You know what I mean? LeBron is always leading the charge. But like Talent said, it seems smart that Milwaukee did it because the shooting happened in their backyard. That seemed like it. But, LeBron did say something, to that effect. You know what I mean? I think what happened was he spoke out what people were thinking. What the players were thinking, like, wow, I wonder if us being here is really doing anything, or are we really ignoring, what's going on outside of the bubble?
Right. Well, the NBA, they had their meeting and everything else, but the most jarring thing I think was that usually when NBA people move and things like that move, people expect certain things. Seems that, according to reports, it seems that the NBA ownership didn't know this was getting ready to happen. NBA team executives didn't know this was happening. It happened. And I think it was a tipping point when they of course, when Milwaukee started that. But how shocked were you, Talent, when you even saw Kenny Smith walk off the set during their TNT broadcast that night?
That was very shocking. But I think it was needed. I agree with him. It definitely threw me through a loop. And I tell you, another one that threw me through a loop was Chris Webber. Mm-hmm. Because we don't usually hear Chris Webber on this level in this forum. And for him to be in an empty gym, talking into that camera and talking to the people, and he was basically talking to encouraging the protesters and the young generation. And he was like, listen, we've been through this, and we know that it probably will never stop. There's always going to be something. He said, they done took all our heroes, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all of our heroes. He said, but that does not mean you get to do nothing.
Right.
You still have to do your part and do something. So those two things together, Kenny Smith walking off and Chris Webber with that empty gym behind him, was so symbolic, man.
Right.
I was very shocked, but very impressed.
Right. How about you, Fig?
Yeah, man, Chris, like Taylor said, man, Chris Webber, man, I didn't know the way that he was talking. I didn't know what Chris Webber was going to do last night. He came off, man. You usually don't hear Chris Webber talk like that, man. The stuff that he was saying about, like the next generation and stuff like that, it was real impactful. And when Kenny walked off, I was like, huh? I was in shock. The thing that struck me kind of crazy is Kenny walked off. Charles Barkley took a sip of whatever he had in his cup, and Shaq just like leaned back, like, I was expecting possibly one of them or both of them to walk off with Kenny also. But when Kenny walked off, they just kind of stayed the course, which that kind of threw me, man. I was like, I don't know, man. I just kind of expected them to support the same way, but now
were you shocked?
Like, everybody not going to give you the same support.
But
so
Fig,
it is what it is.
But Fig, were you shocked when Shaq and Kenny still stayed? I mean, when Shaq and Charles Barkley sat there while Kenny walked off, were you shocked to see that?
That shocked me the most, because some guys will fight the establishment and some guys will just go along, with the establishment as is. And I think Kenny is younger than Shaq, and maybe Kenny is a little older than Shaq, but I think Kenny sides with the younger generation, and Shaq and Charles sort of rides with the older generation of things are never going to change. This new generation they don't give a damn. You understand what I'm saying? They like, we going to change things by any means necessary. And the old guard is like, well, things are always going to be like this, and there ain't nothing we could do. We just do the best we can. This next generation ain't like that. They don't care.
Right. What do you think about your talent? Do you think Shaq and Charles Barkley sitting there, was that, like Fig said, was that symbolic of one thing that he's saying, or were you shocked to see them both sit there? Were you not shocked? How were you feeling when you saw Kenny walk off the set and those two guys who everybody in America knows? I mean, those two guys are household names, and they sat there while Kenny stood there for the younger generation at that. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Frank, in life, you have company men and you have men with ultimate integrity.
Right.
Ultimate integrity is that you have lines. You draw lines, and you can't cross those lines. There's a certain amount you can do, and then you get to that point, and that's where I draw the line. That's called integrity. So Kenny showed extra integrity in his ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that this was a swipe against Black people, which we've been saying, Black Lives Matter. And here we go again. You swiped it, and I can't come to work and be the company guy right now because the people of my persuasion are mourning right now. And I can't sit here behind this desk like everything's peachy, hunky-dory. I got to go and mourn with my people and figure this out with my people. The players have walked off. I got to walk off.
Right.
They're walking off because of their Black, their ethnicity. Now, again, every company have integrity hoggers and they got company men. To me, that was a moment where he separated himself from Shaq and Charles as the company man.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay.
But you know what I mean?
Right.
Even when you watch them interact and they go into a lot of the buffoonery stuff, Kenny don't really try to engage in too much of the buffoonery. He got a great sense of humor. He'll joke and everything, but they'll go like a extra level, rolling on the floor and wrestling and do a little goofy stuff, even the little cartoons and memes they put. But he's an integrity guy. Right. And he showed last night we hit his line. We hit his point where he drew the line and said, I can't sit here tonight. I'll figure this out. But right now, this is the thick of things. A white dude just ran down the street and popped people off, man. Like in the middle of everybody, in the public. It wasn't even like I'm sneaking. Wasn't like no mask or nothing. This brother's 17 years old. Just sit there with the AR, pop, 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 pop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he dealt with it as real as it needed to be dealt with.
Right. Fig,
You know,
let me ask
just
you
one
this.
thing I want to say to tag on to what Talent said, Frank, is that you know what sort of struck me just as you was talking, Talent? Kenny is from New York. He got that New York mentality. You know, something about New York, man. It's like, you know what? Some New Yorkers, I mean, we get that, you know, that rough edge kind of you know, thing that oh God, what is it that we get like a reputation from bucking the system and being kind of rough on the edges. And I think Kenny had that, you know what I mean, that buck the system kind of mentality. And I think a lot of New Yorkers have that.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Speaking of New Yorkers and speaking of having buck in the system, and because you basically kind of put the nail on my next question, if the NBA had not resolved whatever they resolved behind the scenes, do you think the NFL would have followed right behind them, Fig? Or do you think the NFL does not have the same type of knit and solidarity or brotherhood that the NBA players do, especially after looking at how all the sports seem to have canceled out yesterday? The NFL, obviously, they were just having, you know, they don't even have preseason games running. They were just doing practice. Do you think the NFL would have started doing the exact same thing, would have followed suit with them?
You know what? I'm sorry to say, I don't think so. The first thing I want to say, giving kudos to the NFL players, they rough riders. You know what I mean? These guys are built from a whole different cloth and a whole different mentality when it comes to being on that field and doing what it is that they do. They are as close to gladiators that we have in our society. Mm-hmm. But as far as the NFL shield itself, they seem to have their thumbprint on the players. You understand? They seem to have control over what the NFL players do and don't do, and possibly because the NFL, your career in the NFL is an average about 3 to 5 seasons, pretty much. Some get a little less, and there's no guaranteed contracts. So you could be fired for any reason at any time for any minute, and your 3-year window, 3 to 5 year window is gone. Mm-hmm. So they don't have that kind of power. I don't know if they would. The one thing that I do say that I don't think they realize, if they all stuck together, it got to be all of them. If they all stuck together, then they do have the power. But if it's just a handful of them and they're not together, then they'll lose every time going up against the NFL, because you can see how the owners, how they do.
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick.
But here's the thing: it's not really so much the owners. It is, but it ain't. What we got to realize is the difference in these leagues is the unions. Mm-hmm. The NFL has the weakest union. Mm-hmm. So that's why it does seem the way you say it, but it's that way for a reason. Like you're only as strong as your union in these sports. And that's why, remember how I always question why they didn't follow the NBA with the bubble? Because that was a union thing. The players said what they said, and the union, they didn't want to be in a bubble. They wanted to go home to their families, game in and game out. And that won over through the union. But baseball has the strongest union. Right. You know, basketball's somewhere in the middle, but NFL is definitely at the bottom. So that's why it seems like they got all this control over them, and they're able to offer these non-guaranteed contracts and all this little stuff that we don't see in the other leagues. I think, but seasons have a benefit of scheduling. And I think this is one of the reasons why we probably wouldn't have got to see the NFL follow the NBA. They got time before they start their season right now. Mm-hmm. So this energy, this emotional that we're feeling right now, it's going to change day to day, week to week. And by the time it gets into, for lack of a better word, litigation, by the time it gets to the legal formation of it, that energy will be a different place. And they'll be playing. Yeah. They won't have the energy to boycott like the NBA had yesterday. That energy is going to be in a different place by the time it's time for them to play. So that's why I don't think they would follow.
Okay, so one more thing. Go ahead. Can I tag on to what Tom said about their unions? That was great that you said that, because when the whole Kaepernick thing went down, it seemed like the NFL owners bought the union off. They paid the union to kind of toe the line and go along with what it is that they wanted. I mean, they said, we're going to give you a little something. We're going to give you this money to do, whatever you want to do in your community. But as far as this NFL and what we're doing, it's going to stay the same.
Okay, but let me just say for the record, that is absolutely an opinion of yours, because you can't prove that.
Oh, definitely.
Right. You
definitely.
can't say it, but you're stating.
Oh, no, I can prove it.
Okay.
The Kaepernick case, this is how I'm going to prove it to you. The Kaepernick case is damn near a replica of the tobacco case.
Mm-hmm.
The class action against the tobacco companies, they lost, right? Nicotine's addictive. You're addicting people, blah, blah, blah. What the end result was, the same thing with Kaepernick in his NFL case, the end result was, as me losing, I'm still going to sell my cigarettes because I got a world full of addicted people. However, here's the settlement money, and I have to put money towards XYZ. So all these commercials you see talking how bad smoking is, tobacco company is paying for the commercials, telling you how bad it is against themselves. That was part of the sentencing, the claim. Same thing with Kaepernick. He got a glump of money. He got a glump of money suing the NFL, and the money had to go. He had to put chunks of money towards certain things, i.e., the commercials for the tobacco company are the whatever initiative for the young black youth. Whatever his things are, they had to pay him a lump sum, and they had to put lumps of money in there. So it is kind of proof. It is that the union, that they'll say, listen, we're not gonna give you this, but we're gonna give you this amount of money and a couple of things you want on the NFL player tip, and let's shut this shit down.
Okay, I would love to finish this particular part of this conversation right now, but right before we jump into all that, let's get ready to bring in our next guest. We get ready to bring in 10-year NBA veteran, known as probably one of the original bad boys in the game, the Kobe shutdown. Shut down Kobe all the time. Mr. Bonzi Wells, the Blazers, the Grizzlies, the Kings, the Houston Rockets, the Hornets. Bonzi, thank you for joining the show, brother. I appreciate you.
Man, appreciate y'all having me, man. Sorry I'm not at the crib, but I'm in the car, man. I had a power outage where I'm at, man. So I had to use the phone today.
No,
it's all right, brother.
It's all good, though, man.
We always appreciate that.
I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, though.
Yeah, appreciate you. Bonzi, we want to jump right in. We're going to talk about some NBA games and stuff like that in the playoffs and stuff. But before we jump into that, man, you are an NBA player. You know what is really about to go down. Could you see when all that started to go down yesterday and everything else, what was your original thoughts about the players actually just walking out? I mean, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I thought it was going to happen a long time ago. I mean, when Kyrie kind of said it, before the bubble really got to starting, that he was like, yeah, we should protest. Why entertain the people? And, I was optimistic. I was kind of 50-50, like, bring back sports. I love sports like we all do. But the statement was made yesterday. We're not going to entertain you guys while y'all can sit back and continuously kill us, hurt us, abuse your privileges. And, I was very proud to be an NBA veteran yesterday.
Okay. Well, we've been talking a lot about what happened yesterday and everything else. We're not going to continue that part of the conversation because we actually have you on, and we want to ask you your thoughts of being, especially since you're an NBA player. We want to ask you, I know I do, we want to ask you your thoughts about some of these NBA playoff matchups. And since you are a Portland Trailblazer, and since my man Talent is sitting right there, Talent picked Portland to win the entire NBA championship. He said they were going to walk away with that. Now, at the time, when he made the pick, it's 0-0. I will say that. But here's my question for you. Being that Portland is giving LA a really good run for the money until LA came around and started putting their act together and everything else, were you surprised to see that just the way the panache that they had to be able to at least scrap every single game, even though it seemed like they were outmatched?
I mean, definitely. I mean, but if we all know basketball, Portland was just is in such a great rhythm. Going into the playoffs, and the Lakers weren't in a great rhythm. But, as we all know, as human beings, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of things that have to, go your way every single night the way the Portland Trailblazers was playing. They were scoring 130, 140 just to beat you. That's a whole lot of points, a whole lot of everything got to line up perfectly. And, that's a lot of jump shooting. I mean, so you have a team like the Lakers. Yeah, they lost the first game, but a championship team is going to figure them out, and they're going to be like, yo, those shots, they're going to think in their mind, yo, those shots ain't going to fall. Them guys are tired. They're going to start, and we're going to take high percentage baskets, get to the basket, use AD. Brian use his size to get to the basket and get high percentage baskets and then warm them down. And that's what you saw in game 2 and 3 and 4.
Right. Talent, you got a question? I know you got.
Oh yeah. First of all, big fan, bro. Big fan. You know, I always love the dudes that dominate the game. It's one thing to play the game. You know, we all can show up, put some clothes on, some shorts, and play. But you was a dominating force, man, in the game. Speaking from a dominating position, brother, who are the 5 biggest threats still going on, like in the playoffs right now? Who would you say are the 5 biggest threats to play against right now in the playoffs?
If you could name 5.
I mean, obviously, you know, I want to start with that boy Luka Doncic. I mean, that boy Luka Doncic is playing at an extremely high level. At 21 years old, he gets it. He plays the game at his pace. And, you know, when you play the way he play, it's a timeless type game because you're not, you know what I'm saying, he's comfortable at all times. So that matchup with him and Porzingis, that's a good one. Obviously, Kawhi and, you know, Paul George, you know, I'm not worried about Paul George. You know, Kawhi and Paul George, you know, those 2 guys are going to be a problem. I know I'm naming too many people. I'm just kind of thinking duos. So Kawhi, Giannis, obviously Giannis in Milwaukee. I mean, you saw what they can do. They're explosive team, especially on both sides of the court because they got size, they have speed. Obviously, you got to talk about LeBron. I mean, but you can't talk about LeBron without talking about AD. So you know, I know I'm not. I mean, I keep thinking about these duos. So those 4 guys, and then I don't know. I think Dame is hurt, so I kind of take him out the running. But obviously, he would have been in the running if he wasn't hurt. And that 5th guy, let me think. I'm loving those guys out of Boston right now. I mean, Jayson Tatum is playing at an unbelievable level right now. He's my ISO king right now because he's my size. So, yeah, he just you know, he's sneaky athletic. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He's not like Bron where he's but you know, he know how to get separation. He's not fast, but he's quick. You know what I mean? He just knows his game. He reminds me, like I said, of a Luka Doncic who knows his limitations and gets the best out of him.
Right. Fig, you got a question for him?
Yeah, man, I got it. I'm sitting here waiting on my turn. But listen, man, first off, I do like the Jayson Tatum thing that you said because before God rest the dead, before Kobe passed away, Jayson was you know, he was right there learning from Kobe, like how to you know, how to separate, what kind of moves and stuff like that. But I got another question. We know how the players play today, but in your era, it was a little different. So I want to know how you think your game would have translated to the NBA game today. Do you think you could dominate this era the way that you did the era that you played in?
With my mindset and the way I played, oh man, because I would have added something to my bag. My bag would have been stupid. My jumper would have been stupid, but then my aggressive mindset, that would have threw him off right there because I wanted all the smoke. Like I didn't feel comfortable shooting a shot without feeling somebody. Them dudes don't want that no more. They don't want to bump and grind and all that stuff. See, I'm inner city, bro. That's all I knew was, you know, inner city tournaments and you know, people all around the court barbecue and all that stuff, and you know, concrete jungle. So, you know, that's how I played the game, and I look at it now, and I'll be like, damn, man, I wish I was born in '97 or something like that.
They soft now, Bonzi. They soft. They soft right now.
I got a follow-up. I need to ask you this. So now, people always say that today's player is bigger, stronger, athletic because of time and technology and stuff like that. Do you think that because they're that way, did they lose something in the mentality? You was like the way that you think. Do you think that the mentality, I don't want to call them soft, but
I'll call them that, but that's okay.
Do you think the mentality today is just they have a softer mindset than you did when you played in your day?
But you got to think their process was different than ours. If you want to get better today, get on YouTube and be like, yo, how does KD work out? How does, you know, we didn't get that. You know what I'm saying? We didn't. How does Chris Paul get that handle? How does, you know what I'm saying? How do I really increase my vertical? We didn't have the internet growing up. You know, us, we'll walk some hills or somebody, some old school cat from the hood could tell you something. You'd be like, oh yeah, you talking about I gotta swim across that dirty river right there, and I'm gonna get, you know, you'll do anything somebody tell you to do.
Right.
It was a blueprint. So our grind was harder. We wanted it more. You know what I'm saying? Now these dudes, I call them air conditioned babies because they only want to play in the gym with air conditioning. They ain't play on that concrete jungle like we played on. Like you know, you had to learn or you couldn't play. Like
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like so these guys had the blueprint and we didn't have the blueprint. Like if you want to get good, they got the blueprint now for us. You know what I'm saying? We were self-made. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't no blueprint, and everything that they're seeing today was a product of stuff we built. You know what I'm saying? And you know, from 60s, 70s, 80s, and on, you know what I'm saying? The guys are taking our blueprint.
Right. Okay. Bonzi, let me ask you this, man. I want to switch gears just a little bit. Our time is, we're trying to keep this show moving and everything else. Now, looking at what's happening to the Philadelphia 76ers and looking off of what Fig just asked you, when you watch Joel Embiid play, how are you feeling looking at that big man in the box? Just because you were one of the best defenders in the league, people wanted you. Yeah. Looking at Joel Embiid in the box right now, how are you feeling looking at his game, and how are you feeling about what's going on in Philadelphia right now? Because we've been talking about it for the last couple of days. So,
well, it's funny. We was talking about it on our show last night. We were just talking about Joel Embiid, and the biggest thing that I think is his biggest problem is I don't think he's truly bought into being an NBA player. And when I say that, he loves the lifestyle, the stuff that comes with it, the money, the girls, maybe the commercials, the Joel Embiid, you nice. But I'm talking about the grind that Kobe be talking about. I want to be better than everybody. I want to be the best player. I just don't, and I don't know for sure, but he don't look in shape to me. He don't look like he's really turned his body into I want to see them rips like KG was, like Rasheed Wallace. I want to see some deer. I want to see a deer out of him. See, but I see a guy that's comfortable. He's okay with where he is, and he don't, like Jimmy Butler, I get it. Them guys don't care about winning or losing. You know what I mean? I totally get it. And you can't be around people like that. And I think Joel Embiid, until he figure out what he wants to be in his NBA, he's going to have a problem moving forward.
Well, wow. I'm glad you answered that because that's the topic that we've been asking you. Now, before we talk about your podcast and everything, I'm going to leave you with this last question. And we ask every NBA player don't we, fellas? We ask them who they taking for the NBA championship before, who you picking coming out of the East, who you picking coming out of the West, and who you think is going to get crowned since NBA is now getting ready to pick back up.
Well, I think it's going to be a dogfight out the East, and my three-headed monster is obviously Boston, Toronto, and Milwaukee. But I just think Milwaukee is just with the star power of Giannis, he's just too much. I mean, the way he play and the size, they can shoot it. I think it's going to be tough to beat them in a 7-game series. So I got them coming out the West and out the East. And out the West, I'm just going to keep them in LA. I'm going to keep it with the Clippers and the Lakers. And I got to give it to the Lakers because Bron is on a mission. And I gave up on Bron 2 weeks ago. It's blasphemy. Like, that was the wrong thing to do. Like, he came out in the last game and looked like superhuman. He looked like Megatron out there or something. So Bron is on a mission, man. I'm going to give it to the Lakers and Milwaukee's in the finals, and I'm going to give it to the Lakers because I think it's Bron's time. I think it's AD's time.
I'm glad you said that. Now, can you tell everybody out there about your podcast? Because I heard you have a podcast. I heard you do it with Rasheed. Mr. Ball Don't Lie, Rasheed Wallace. Love that dude. We got to get him on, Bonzi. We got to get him on. Could you tell us about your podcast? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll definitely plug you up. But yeah, we got a pod called Let's Get Technical, man. We're on YouTube. We're on all the audio platforms. We're on IG under Bonzi She Tech. We're on Twitter. But it's just something, man, that we've been talking about for a couple of years, but we didn't know if it was a market for us, because we've been considered the bad boys, the people that, just the bad boys. Our reputation. People wasn't trying to mess with us like that. They was trying to get away from us instead of messing with us. So, my brother Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, I went and saw them about 6 months ago. I rode up on them in New York, saw what they was doing, and I was like, man, this is what y'all do. They was like, man, we got a voice now. Y'all should try it. Called Rasheed immediately. He finally said yes. We got on it, and then we just been filming, man, and just filming content, and it's therapeutic, man. It's been great for us to kind of get all the stuff out because we never had a voice back then. People talk bad about us, ran our names through the mud, kind of created their own narrative of who we are. Yeah. So now we can kind of just say our own thing and let people know who we really are, and we ain't these old, these BS cats that these people try to make us out to be.
Right. Now,
when we see the fans, the fanatics, we already knew that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Real recognize real, bro. Yeah, like that comes back to bite them in the ass because they created the characters y'all and made us love y'all. You know what I mean? Like we watch basketball for the people who bring that real. Like you don't watch, ain't nobody tuning in to watch the softness. You know what I mean? Like this league right now is soft. Even if you cut the TV on now, you can't tell me it don't look like a video game.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
It looks exactly like that. They found a way to bring 2K to the NBA. Like literally,
Exactly.
like it's crazy. It's the same thing. Because if you played it, I'll play 2K. If you play 2K, there's no mid ranges, either long threes or a dunk. That's all it is. If you shoot a mid range, guys get mad at you. Oh man, what you doing, bruh? It was open, but it's no. I think these kids want style points on top of the regular points. I think the long threes they think count as 4, and I think the fancy moves and shit they think count as 2.5. So I don't know, man. I got some young kids, man. I just try to embrace it and just try to go along with the changing tides.
How come you didn't coach, man? How come you didn't coach?
I do coach, actually, man. I just finished my 3rd year coaching. I coach high school. Me and Rashid both coach high school. I'm here in Indiana. I coach high school. I coach my alma mater where I went to, and Rashid's down in North Carolina in Durham. He coached a team down there, so he just finished his 2nd year. So, man, we love it. It's been really cool being able to touch lives with these kids, and a lot of my kids, I know their parents, I know their situation, so it makes it easy for me because I can kind of, I got a great feel for them coming in. So, but it feels good to do it, man, and doing the pod on top of coaching, man. I couldn't ask for a better situation.
Well, thank you for taking out the time, man. Tell us one more time what the name of the podcast, and I know you're on all the platforms. What's the name of the podcast again?
Yeah, it's called Let's Get Technical, man. We were the Technical Foul Boys, so we kind of played on the name Let's Get Technical. So, that's that was the name I came up with. Check us out.
That's fire.
Rashid sketched the logo. Rashid sketched the logo, man. Rashid's an artist, so he sketched the logo, man. So we just been out. We had a lot of people on. We've had Jalen Rose on, Stephen A. Smith, Steven Jackson, Damon Stoudemire. We've had countless people on. We're 23 episodes in, man, and we're gonna keep it moving, man. We're doing it independent. We don't got no help from nobody. So that we just loving,
that's getting picked up, Bonzi. Bonzi, that's getting picked up.
Yeah, that's getting picked up.
That's gonna be prime time this time. That's getting picked up.
Yeah, that's getting picked up. But thank you for taking out the time, Bonzi. We appreciate you. I'm gonna plug in with you so I can see if we get Rashid on tomorrow. Because why not, right? Why not get technical for 2 days in a row, right? Let's do that. But
yes, sir. I'll definitely plug you up, man. I'll talk to him, man.
All right,
thank you, gentlemen. Blessings to y'all, man.
All right, thanks, bro.
Respect, bro. That's what I'm talking about.
In case y'all didn't know, that was Bonzi Wells. Bonzi Wells played a lot of years in the NBA, good 10 years. I loved him when he played for Memphis Grizzlies. I loved him when he played for Houston. And, oh, my goodness, how could we not forget when he played for Portland?
But where did you not love him? He was a bona fide player. One thing about Bonzi, he was consistent no matter who he played for.
That's very true. That's very, very true. And you know what? Because he banged like that and he did like that, that's when I started to really love the guys who bang down low, because you know what I mean. Like that's what it's all. That's what ball playing is all about. So,
Frank,
with that being said,
did you hear all the guys that he named that he was talking about? Do you notice that they was all dogs? Bonzi Wells, Rasheed Wallace, Matt Ball, like dude, all dogs. If you take any one of the mentality of those dudes and put it into Joel Embiid, the Sixers beat everybody.
Joel Embiid don't want to beat him. Didn't you hear him tell you they don't want to beat him? You know what I mean? Joel Embiid wants to be Justin Bieber.
Right.
Yeah, he's fluffy. He want to be fluffy.
With that being said, we're getting ready. Let us introduce another guest who is by way of has some NBA ties himself, Mr. Amir Sealy. Mr. Amir Sealy, how you doing today, brother? Thank you for joining us.
I'm good. How you doing, gentlemen?
Amir, turn your phone sideways, Amir. Turn
my phone sideways.
Yeah, take up the whole screen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Hold on a second. Let me get y'all right.
Yeah,
get it. Bomb.
There you go.
Yes.
Hey, so thank you for joining the show, Amir. Talent, can you do a full introduction to everybody who this gentleman is?
Absolutely. You should be able to look at him and tell the spitting image of his brother, the late great Malik Sealy out of St. John's University. I go to St. John University. You know what I mean? Timberwolf, all that good stuff. All-star player from the movie Eddie. This is the man behind the music right here. Amir, me and his family got tight over the years, dealing with his brother before he passed away. But in those years, the reason why I said let's have him as a guest on the show, because this man's mind is like a replica of my mind and everybody who grew up in that same era of basketball. We just hung up with Bonzi Wells. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So exactly. So we were talking about tough players and all that. So he's the perfect match. Ladies and gentlemen, Amir Silly is on in the box.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you for joining the show. Now, Amir, after you, since you're so tied into sports and everything else, we're going to talk about the actual games and everything else. But how surprised were you? Because obviously you related to your brother and had some relations with NBA players and everything else. You know the mentality of NBA players while they're playing in the game between their young ages and everything else. How surprised were you to see a group of young brothers who play in the NBA, who normally are thinking about much other things, come together and be able to walk out of the NBA playoff game?
You know what's so crazy about that? Yesterday, I wasn't watching it in real time, so I wasn't aware of exactly what happened. By the time I actually saw anything, it was Kenny Smith's part where he walked off the set of Inside the NBA. So I'm looking and I'm hearing what he was saying and everything, and I was like, huh? I wasn't sure what was going on. So I called one of my boys who's avid NBA fan and everything, and I asked him what's going on. He said, yo, the whole thing has been shut down. All the players decided not to play and this and that. I was like, wow. I said, in this day and age when, we hear so many people saying that young people don't care, and especially this generation of players,
right?
And this generation in general don't care about what's going on in the world. To see that yesterday spoke volumes about how much not only do these young players care, but how great and how passionate they are about everything that's going on in the world as well.
Now, part two of that. Hold up, Amir, real quick. Yes. Part two of that question is, and Frank asked this to us earlier. What was your takeaway when Kenny walks away, obviously, but Barkley and Shaq remain?
Well, the deal with the Barkley and Shaq situation, like anything and everything, I think that we have to understand that everybody has a role and a part to play in what we see going on. Barkley and Shaq in particular, especially Shaq, have elevated themselves to spaces and places where we hope a lot of our newer NBA players and future NBA players will elevate themselves to. And by that, I simply mean this. He's now become such a brand and such a great spokesman for so many brands and partners with so many brands that's where we really would like to see these players get to, because unfortunately, we see so often that once these guys leave the league, based off of not making maybe the best financial decisions, they go broke. A guy like Shaq is showing you that even years and years after, not playing the game anymore, but being a personality and being an energy and a spirit that the game is needed and has been so great, you can still, make money other ways. And I think that we have to look at that piece of the puzzle and understand that that's a large part of what we hope some of these younger players are taking with them. And so that's how I looked at that. I didn't take it as, they didn't stand in unison and, these guys, think that they're outside of stuff. They're older gentlemen. They don't have the luxury of saying, I got 10, 15 more years to, play or to continue to build my brand. They're now, what would be perceived as outdated in a real sense when you talk to, today's players and the younger players. So now you think those guys still be relevant and put their energy and their train of thought in a different way, so that now these players, can think for a moment and go, you know what, I may or may not have to definitively give up everything, or say that, the way I'm choosing to, take a stance is right or wrong. It's just different. You know what I mean? That's the way I saw that.
Got it. So them being big brand things makes a big difference. I get that, Frank.
Well, Fig, you got a question for him?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that you would say that. I think, like what you were saying, it takes all kinds of people doing things differently in order to move us forward. But what would you say to a younger generation that said, because maybe Shaq and Barkley is in business with the corporations, that they couldn't do certain things because the corporations sort of, quote unquote, bought their blackness, for lack of a better way to explain it? What would you say to the younger generation that would say something like that? Because sometimes people get angry and they be like, oh man, you selling out, you doing this, you should have walked off too. What would you say to somebody like that, behind what Charles and Shaq did by staying on?
Well, again, I think that first and foremost, obviously the train of thought would be that. But I think if you look at the bigger picture, like I said, for both those gentlemen, Charles Barkley, at a point, people thought some of the ways that he carried himself and some of the ways he acted was, semi-buffoonish or, wasn't the greatest representation of us. And as far as Shaq is concerned, the funny thing about Shaq, which, we all, tend to dismiss, think about all of the things that Shaq has and all the spaces that Shaq has been in his entire life. He's been a rapper. He's been a DJ. Like, he's done just about everything that these young guys, like I said, aspire to want to do. When you have that kind of energy and you take on those kind of challenges, hopefully that inspires you to say, you know what? I don't have to just be perceived as a basketball player. I don't have to just be perceived as a father. I don't have to just be perceived as a husband. There are other spaces that I can get into that now hopefully the people who are coming behind me can also look to and go, wow, he did that. Maybe there's an opportunity for me to be able to do the same. And that's the way I think I'm hoping that, most of these young players will look at it. I know there's just going to be young people who just, by virtue of what we do as a community, say, oh, nah, they should have, said and done this. And I get that. But I always feel like everybody has their own journey. And it's not up to us as fans to define what somebody else's journey is. What we can do, though, is, take a look and go, I might not have done that, but that doesn't mean that they're right or wrong for doing it. That's
right. All right, Amir, let's switch gears. Let's talk about the games and stuff like that in the NBA in particular right now. There's a lot of coaching vacancies right now. Being that you know a lot about the NBA, you know a lot of inside stuff that goes on right now. Which coaching vacancy would you take and be like, you know what, besides the obvious, because it seems like everybody's gonna, say, yeah, I got to jump on Brooklyn and everything else, Obviously Brooklyn looks like they start next year, but besides the obvious, which NBA vacancy would you think to be the one to be the one?
Wow. That's a good one. Here's the problem that I have, and this goes for the the NBA as a whole. I'm sorry if I'm shifting because I'm trying to make sure you guys can see me. But I think one of the real caveats to me with the NBA in general is we have to, or I'm hoping that the league will do what they need to do in terms of bringing new ideas and bringing some of these former players in as coaches. I'm sick and tired of seeing guys who have been around the NBA for 1,000 years continue to get these coaching jobs. Not because I think that they're good or bad coaches. I just think you need new trains of thought. When you're a player who's formerly played the game, you understand the game differently than somebody who played it in the 70s or played it in the 60s. Why? Because the players are bigger and stronger now. The players do more things now. As a fan of the game, just to just give you a quick train of thought what I mean. Like, I watch the games now. I'm mad to see so many 7-footers shooting threes. Not that they can't shoot threes, but we came from an era where those same guys would go inside and they punish dudes for being too small. When we came up playing basketball, that's the way we learned how to play the game. I didn't learn how to play the game by, standing outside because I could knock down a three, so I knocked down a three. Like I said, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but to the point that y'all just made about Joel Embiid or Anthony Davis or some of these other big men in the game, the dudes should be inside killing these dudes. Let the guys who are supposed to be shooters be shooters. I think that it's great that we have expanded the game and widened it and all that stuff. But what happened to the good old fashioned? Do you know how many games I've watched where I'm screaming at my TV because I saw somebody with a layup and they at the basket and they throw the ball all the way back out to the 3-point line and I want to kick my TV and like, what the? But as a fan, you have to understand that this is where the game has evolved to, so you let it be. But it doesn't make sense to me because I think we have to understand that the game is still simple. It's just put the ball in the basket, play defense. That's it. Right. You can do those things, you're good. You know
what? I just want to piggyback on what you said. You was talking about the big guys going in the paint. We talked about that a couple shows back. And the one thing that you said that resonated when you talked about Anthony Davis, The one game that Anthony Davis decided to go into the paint and dominate in the paint, that was the game that they blew out the Portland Trailblazers.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And my thing is, to your point, Fig, when you look at these guys, and like I said, I get it. Maybe you don't want to bang as much as, the players of yesteryear. So I get that. That could be tough. But anybody who's played the game of basketball, yes, in theory, as fans, it's easy for us to sit here and, be Monday morning quarterbacks or whatever. But the reality of it all is you change the dynamics of the game. Stop trying to play the game the same way everybody else is playing the game. The reason why the thing worked for Golden State the years that it did is because the league itself had decided that we needed more points and we needed the energy to beat up, which was great. But you stopped the players from being individually great at what they could already do. Anthony Davis, it's great that you can knock down a three, sir, but you're taller, stronger, more agile, and more athletic than most of these big men. Same for Joel Embiid. So, guys, if y'all go inside and you just decide that every night I'm going to go in here and I'm going to punish their, smaller inside guys, then teams will have no choice but to understand that, we gotta, make allotment for this.
Right.
But if you don't do it, you continue to throw up threes like the Houston Rockets do, and you can't knock down a three, then you lose the game.
Right. But here's the thing with that, Amir. The thing about that is playing inside is like banging is a choice. You can play inside without banging. You don't have to be a banger, but people who bang because they were good at banging, they were strong, whatever. But my thing is simple numbers. It's a high percentage shot. If God made you 7 feet and you get close, 90% you're gonna make those. You ain't gonna make 90% of threes. The best 3-point shooters don't shoot 90%. But guess what? If you're a 7-footer and you are this far from the damn net, this far, and you just got to get in there. I'm not asking you to get in there and be Karl Malone. You ain't got to be there and be Barkley, but just get in there and be at least Manu Ball.
Even to the point that you just made, and people haven't looked at this. Look at the young man that did play for Golden State that's now with the Lakers. I can't think of the other big man. His mom used to be a WNBA player.
McGee, JaVale McGee.
Yo, look at McGee's numbers and look at how he finishes around that basket because LeBron can find him and drop that ball into him. He's not an outside shooter, but he's killing inside because he's just doing what you're supposed to do as a guy who's that big and can be around the basket. And the story.
Even another big guy that didn't bang was Hakeem Olajuwon. He had more moves than anybody. He wasn't a banger, but he was effective.
Amir, thank you. We appreciate you taking out the time and everything else. Can you tell everybody what you're doing now and how we can follow you and all that? Because our segment is getting ready to wrap up. I want to make sure we can follow you.
Sure. Everybody, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm A-Rock Sealy, A-R-O-C-K, Sealy, S-E-A-L-Y, all one word on Instagram. And on Facebook, I'm just Amir Sealy. I'm not trying to hide from nobody.
So you A-Rock on Instagram.
It's good to see you. Frank, thank you, sir, for having me on the show. T, you know how we do, brother. I love you, man.
I'll see you later on tonight, bro. That's my co-host of my show.
Bro, we got to bring you back. We appreciate all your thoughts and wisdom, man.
I would love to come back, gentlemen. All right?
Appreciate
you, man.
Thank you. All right,
y'all. On Instagram, I'm A-Rock.
Okay, being silly. Now let's continue on with the conversation, man. Let's keep this thing moving. Now, this is the thing I wanted to ask both of you because, of course, that segment ended, but we got to continue to talk about the NBA playoffs because getting ready to pick back up. Question for you, Talent: did Luka get hit by Marcus Morris on purpose, like everybody's making it to be a big thing, or was that just an accidental contact? I'm sure you saw the play. I'm sure you saw.
I think it was an accidental contact. I don't think it was on purpose because one thing I know about the Morris brothers is they're tough guys and they're not scared of nothing. So when asked that question, he said, "Hey, I wouldn't." He said, "I've never had to play dirty on purpose." He's like, "The game ain't that serious. I'm good enough to not have to do that. If I would have did that, you know what I mean? A, I'm a sucker, but B, I'm gonna own up to it." And I know those boys, and they some real rough, keep it real dudes. If he did it, he would have said, "Yo, so what?"
Right.
I don't think he did.
Right, Fig, what you think?
No, man, the only way you can get in trouble for that is if you did it to your mother in the supermarket. Only way that's a flat tire, man.
Right.
How many times? Listen, tell it. How many times we played basketball in the park and somebody step on the back of your foot and your sneaker come off? Come
Right.
on, man. It's the NBA.
Yeah.
What else are these guys gonna cry about? That's
Right.
all.
But again, Fig, they soft. They soft. Like the stuff that they crying about, you gotta know. First of all, anybody that's ever played any sport knows injury is inadvertent all day, every day. Every day somebody could inadvertently bump a knee, shin bust, elbow, you know what I mean? Poking an eye, finger. You seen Dame fucking dislocation. Like all these things go with the game.
Right.
When I was younger, man, I was playing basketball. I was looking up trying to get a rebound. Tall dude went up, grabbed the rebound, and came down, cracked me on the bridge of my nose with his elbow. He didn't even know I was there.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. It happens. Now, let me ask you another question. Let's keep this thing going. Let me ask you another question. Talent, now that the NBA is about to resume, does the days off help some of the teams that they had off? I mean, because, according to the NBA, where it has been, these NBA teams had actually a lot of games, a lot of days off. But in this season, because of what happened and being in the bubble, it's every other day. So now that, of course, the teams are resuming, does these extra days off help any particular team in particular, or is it just going to be just as business as usual? Because let's be honest, right now, a lot of these teams are getting ready to jump back in the grind, but they're still in the bubble, so they still have the bubble effect. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, one dude is leaving the bubble as we speak, and it may help him. So if you got an injury, and it take these 2, 3, 4 days you had off, could be the difference in the fact that Dame Dollar left the bubble today to go to Portland to look at something, but that one day turned into 4 days.
Right.
So when they resume during the weekend, don't be surprised if we get a pop-up appearance and he's back.
Right.
Which he was gonna miss that game.
Right, because the NBA has to start to reschedule everything right now. They're doing that right now since they know it's resumed. They're rescheduling everything else right now. And Portland might not play their next game until Monday. I mean, or maybe Sunday. You never know. I mean,
I'm saying that could help.
Yeah, that will help when they have an injury.
And that could hurt. What about the teams that got their rhythm clicking? That could hurt them.
That's why I asked. That's exactly why I asked, because teams that are in the rhythm, especially like OKC, they got into a great rhythm. You know what I mean?
And that could hurt them.
And mess them up. Fig, what do you think?
Well, the teams that I think it could definitely help is Dallas, because Luka is he got that twisted ankle and he needs to time will only make that better. And then Kristaps Porzingis, you know what I mean? He had an injury that he needed to come back from. On another team, the team that I expect to win it all is the Clippers. It gives my man what's my defensive dude, short dude, defensive dude on the Clippers that had been playing out, that's been out. I can't call his name. Well, anyway, it helps the Clippers too, because the point guard, the defensive point guard, man, Patrick Beverly. Thanks, T. Patrick Beverly had an injury, a calf strain, and this extra 3-4 days will really help him. He's a strong defensive player for that team, and he really gets them going. So if Patrick Beverly could come back for the Clippers,
that's your answer, Frank. That's your answer. It helps the injuries and it may hurt the continuities.
Right, but the reason why I asked is because teams that are picking up the rhythm, like the Clippers, got into a rhythm. Like the last game, they blew out. They got into a good rhythm, so it's definitely going to help them. But there are going to be some teams, in my opinion, that the stop might hurt. Like OKC had built up. It took them it took them everything. They got everything they had just to come back and to tie that series with Houston, and they were looking to bounce back. Now that the time gap might cool them off. So basically the question was a twofold question. Is it going to help some teams and it's going to hurt some teams? You know what I mean? And I think it's going to help some teams and it will hurt some teams, because you have a team like Dallas, yes, they have a couple of injuries and everything else, but you know what? The way they got 154 points smoked on them, I think maybe they needed those couple of extra days off. But anyway, before we roll up out of here, because we got to wrap up the show because it's that time. You know what I mean? You know how it is. We got to wrap that up. We do that all the time. We got to do that. Wrap this up. What is your last thoughts? Because today is a political day, and what happened with the NBA. What is your parting thoughts with what you're seeing happening with the NBA? Since now you both know that the NBA is resuming, and please keep it to 60 seconds. Fig, you go first.
I really hope that the stoppage and the walkout yesterday gives the NBA owners, it grabs their attention to do some of the things that they have the power to do, like being able to connect with possibly some of these lobbyists and stuff like that. And maybe they realize how it not only impacts people outside of the NBA, but how it affects people inside of the NBA also. It affects us across the board, everyone, the rich, the up and outers, the down and outers. It affects everybody with brown skin. And I hope that the walkout yesterday got somebody's attention, and they really are engaged to be able to do something to affect change.
Talent.
Well, I'm gonna take a page from Chris Broussard. I watched him give a couple of comments on what he's hoping to expect. I think what the players did, I think from a standpoint, most people won't see what they did, but they did what they did to grab the owner's attention. And they said that the owners have to be more accountable. And what they mean by that is these owners have crazy power and say so, and an influence that can make things happen and change things for the better for their people. They're doing that to get the attention of the owners. Yeah, you got our attention because we were watching the playoffs, but ultimately the bottom dollar in the pocket is the owner, and the dollar makes most sense there. So they're saying, hey, you want us to play and entertain you and line your pockets and your conglomerate. Well, we need you to take care of us. We're black, and they're killing black people. And we need to show that Black Lives Matter. That means the ownership, the power at the top. We need to hold you guys. You got to be more accountable and really buy in. Just putting the logo down and stitching some jerseys, that's not full buy-in. We need full buy-in. Perfect example is, Robert Kraft, like he used an example. Robert Kraft went to visit Meek Mill, say he don't belong in here. Meek Mill was out in 2 weeks.
Right. Yes, sir.
Meanwhile, Beyonce, Jay-Z, LeBron, everybody tried to get him out.
Right.
They had the money, but they didn't have the power and the influence. Right. Robert Kraft goes up there and said, this man shouldn't be locked up. 2 weeks later, he's out.
Right.
Yeah. And the list goes on and on. So I hope out of this, because they're in a partnership at this point. These players like LeBron and them are at a level of partnership and profit sharing. So at this point, I hope that they buy all the way in and that they start using, their influence and their power and become more accountable and make a difference.
I'll leave everybody at home. I'll leave everybody at home with this. This is what I'll leave you all with. And I don't like putting my opinions out there too much for this, but I'll say this. When young people who are playing a professional sport can put together their thoughts and then make a plan and put together an action that will affect a league that creates and generates billions and billions and billions of dollars in the economy. And then it has a ripple effect that will reverberate through the entire nation. I absolutely love that, because that's what the power of sports can do. If you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not too sure, maybe we can, maybe now, the power of sports moves, and it moves this country. So I, for one, will sit there and say, I love it, because if the NBA domino falls, the next one will be the NFL domino will fall. And the next one will be the Major League Baseball, and then the NHL. And now if you have all four of those big dogs right there, they fall, you know what happens? Now we see change. But with that being said, we got to get ready to wrap up. Fig, tell everybody.
Wait, one last word, Frank. If I go to jail, I want either Robert Kraft or Kim Kardashian to come get me out.
Okay. Okay. How do they follow you?
You can follow me on all social media platforms as Comedian Fig.
You can follow Fig at penitentiary.com. free comedianfig.com. It's your boy Talent. It's just comedy on Twitter. Talent the Comedian on IG. King Talent Harris on Facebook. Bomb.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Download the Humor Mill app. Look for us on your local platforms. Call up your cable companies so they can pick up the channel. But either way, we will be back tomorrow. We're here every Monday through Friday, 1 to 2. I'm Frank Holder. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And hey, you heard, we might get Rasheed Wallace tomorrow. But if not, get somebody hot too, because that's what we do. You all stay there. We really appreciate you. Stay tuned. We'll see you tomorrow.